Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. This video is about choosing the best place to move to. If you're thinking about moving, stay tuned. I will go through some options. The focus is going to be on the best place to move for your personal economics. Low unemployment, job opportunities, and so on. So starting off with, one of the reasons a lot of people choose to move to begin with, income tax, state income tax. California and New York have some of the highest state income tax in the country. New York City adds additional city tax. A lot of people move out of those states for that reason. So there are low income tax states. All these states have zero state income tax. Texas, Florida, Nevada, Alaska, New Hampshire, Wyoming, Tennessee, and South Dakota. So if you want to pay zero state income tax, those are the choices. But of those states, two of them are better than the others in terms of job growth, unemployment, business opportunity, and so on. So in terms of business growth, Florida is the best right now. Florida is getting the most Wall Street money. Wall Street money is fleeing New York. It started during COVID. And right now there's something going on with the local government there. I think a mayor being elected. A lot of people are planning to pull up stakes and relocate. Florida is usually the choice. Florida has very low unemployment, 2.7% in Miami and Orlando. So in terms of your personal economics, if you're in a state that has high state income tax and you're trying to decide where to move, those should be at the top of the list probably. Because unlike Texas, which has very high property taxes, Florida's property taxes, not too bad. Texas has no state income tax, but their property taxes are pretty horrific. They're over 2%. Most states are 1% plus or minus. Florida is one of them. Florida has low unemployment statewide. I believe it's like 3.5% for the entire state. But in Miami and Orlando, we're at 2.7% unemployment. Very, very low. Lots of opportunity if you're thinking about moving. Knowing that there's a very low unemployment rate is very encouraging, very enticing. A lot of large financial businesses are moving to Florida. You probably heard this. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Citadel, Ken Griffin, the multi-billionaire. Elliott Capital Management, he operates a large hedge fund. Paul Singer is his name, the guy who runs that. Carl Icahn Enterprises, we all know who Carl Icahn is. Blackstone Group, huge. ARK Investment Management, huge. Tiger Global Management, Thoma Bravo, and lots of other ones are fleeing the very poor policies in New York City, the financial district there, and moving to mostly Miami. ARK Investments is in St. Petersburg. So the reason I wanted to mention this is because financial institutions, yes, they like the idea that their employees will pay low state income tax, basically zero. But they're very selective about where they set up business. They're very selective. And the fact that they're all choosing Miami means that the state is being run well. Because the reason it's a huge deal for these very large companies to pull up stakes and relocate operations, some or all of their operations, to another state. It's a huge hassle. So they really do a lot of due diligence before they move. The fact that all of these huge companies are putting a stamp of approval on Florida is why, besides the high property taxes in Texas, Florida is probably the best option. This is sort of like if you were to hire someone who was college educated and for a tech job, and one person went to a state college in some state, and the other person went to MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, you choose the MIT grad most likely, or lean towards that because they put a stamp of approval. It's very difficult to get into MIT. You have to be very smart, and you have to be very qualified. So the fact that these large financial companies are choosing Florida puts a stamp of approval that the state is well run. Because the entire reason they're leaving New York is because it's not well run. It's poorly run. And apparently the next mayor of New York, if it happens, I believe is going to create even more problems. So Florida is probably going to get another huge influx of people out of New York. So California and New York have lost collectively over $1 trillion in investments. What that means is that these companies have investors who invest in the products they sell. Over $1 trillion of that money is now in Florida. It's now in Miami, specifically in the Brickell Financial District in Miami. If you look this up online, Brickell Financial District, it explains that area. That's where a lot of these companies are locating to. So this is a huge sum of money that these states are losing. So they're being poorly run. And when a state is managed very poorly, the smart people tend to leave first. The smart people who can afford it search for the best option, and they have chosen Florida as the best option. So the quality of life in Florida, it is surrounded by warm water beaches. New York, California, they also have access to the ocean, right? But unless you're in San Diego, most of the ocean waters there are cold. They're cold ocean waters. For example, in Santa Cruz, if you wanted to take a swim in the summer in Santa Cruz, you're generally looking at an outside temperature in the 60s. It gets cold there. It stays chilly at the ocean in Santa Cruz. That's up north. And most people wear a wetsuit if they're going to be in the water for an extended period of time. Surfers usually wear wetsuits. It's so cold. The water's so cold. San Diego, a little warmer, but Florida is surrounded by warm water beaches. So quality of life, that's a big draw, right? So another quality of life issue, compared to California and New York, Florida has relatively low home prices compared to those two states. For example, in California, I was just reading the other day, when my wife and I graduated from college, I think the median home price in Sunnyvale in Silicon Valley was between $150,000 and $200,000, or it might have been higher. But it was not in the millions. Right now, it's like over $4 million in Sunnyvale. The median home price is over $4 million. And there's a lot of real estate speculation in California that is the reason for the very high prices, because there's no more land left to build. So whatever already exists gets highly bid up because there's a supply shortage of real estate in California. Florida has a lot of undeveloped land. It's still kind of wide open. So home prices there are much lower compared to both California and New York. So I mentioned this previously. People are fleeing California and New York because of bad management, bad policies, and taxes. California and New York have some of the highest state income taxes in the country. California has the highest gas prices in the country. I think they're tied with Hawaii. The market size in Florida, this is important if you're a business owner considering a move. The size of the market in Florida is there's like 23.5 million state residents, permanent residents, but there are 144 million, that's 6 times the size of the state population. 6 times the size of the state population. 144 million people come to Florida and spend money there every year. 144 million people. That's huge. That's 6 times the state population, more than 6 times. So that's a combination of tourists and what they call snowbirds. Snowbirds live in a northern state like in New England or the Midwest, in Canada also, and they move to Florida during the cold winter months temporarily. So quality of life, great beaches, low home prices. It's nothing like California and New York. They don't have the bad policies in those states. And the size of the market, if you're a business owner, is huge. There's a massive consumer market there. So some things I could not fit on the board. Here are the fastest growing types of businesses in Florida: healthcare, real estate, technology, especially fintech and artificial intelligence, construction, e-commerce and digital marketing, and warehousing and logistics. There's a lot of money to be made in Florida. There's a lot of consumer demand. There's a lot of consumer spending in Florida. They have over 23 million full-time residents and another 144 million people who visit Florida and spend money. That's a huge market for selling things to. So there's a lot of warehousing and logistics for storing products that are sold to the public. So there are two cities in Florida that are probably the best choices, and I'll mention a third. The top choice, if you're thinking about moving and you choose Florida, Miami is probably the best choice. Miami's getting all of these large financial companies. The only reason they're there is they know that is a great place to do business, right? So if you're a business owner, Miami is probably the best choice. The only drawback is all these companies moving there is sort of driving up the cost of housing. The second choice is Orlando. Orlando has a technology presence in semiconductors, photonics, and artificial intelligence. And as I said, Orlando has only 2.7% unemployment. So if you're coming from another state and you're concerned, can I find work there? The answer is yes. There's 2.7% unemployment in Orlando. The third choice city in Florida is Tampa. The Tampa Bay area is pretty vibrant. It's on the coast. St. Petersburg to the north, Sarasota to the south. Some of the best beaches in the country are in Sarasota. Siesta Key Beach, I think it's like the #1 beach in the country. Year after year, it gets rated the best beach in the country. So why Florida over Texas? Because Texas has no state income tax. They have a pretty decent business environment. The big problem with Texas is they have some of the highest property taxes in the U.S. And that can cause problems for people who, especially if you're in real estate, if you operate rental property or if you operate commercial property that leases space to businesses, the property taxes are a burden. They're onerous. Florida doesn't have that problem. Florida is much more reasonable. Florida gets so much money from their financial district in Miami and from all these tourists and snowbirds. That's a huge number of people, 144 million. Because if you think about it, how many citizens are in the U.S.? About 350 million? This is more than like 1/3 of the entire country coming to Florida. And spending money. That is a ton of money. So Florida does not have the need that Texas does to raise property taxes to make up the shortfall from no state income tax. Florida is getting a ton of money from these people visiting. And now that these financial institutions are in the Brickell Financial District in Miami, oh boy, that's a cash cow for the state in terms of state income from these institutions. $1 trillion in investments California and New York lost because of bad management. So it's a lesson to be learned. But basically, if you're thinking about moving, probably these are the best states to choose from. You don't have to necessarily choose Texas or Florida, but those are probably two at the top of the list to consider. Now, if you're stuck or you feel like you're stuck in your current situation, in your current state, but you're unhappy there, there's two things to think about. Number one, life is short, right? We're not going to live forever. You may as well be in a place that you're happy with, where the quality of life is good, right? Number two, make a list. What you can do, you can make this a systematic process of figuring out, do I really want to move? Here's what you can do. Get out a piece of paper. The left column is leave. The right column is stay in the state that you're currently living in. And then over the next several months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, add things to the list. Add things to the leave side, reasons to leave, add things to the reasons to stay side. And then at some point, look at the list. One of them will be longer than the other. For example, you might have a full page of reasons to leave and only a couple of things in the reason to stay. Like reasons to stay might be things like climate is good and friends are here. Where the left column might be a long list of things that could be better and that probably are better in many of these states. The high state income tax in your situation might be the straw that broke the camel's back. So give that some thought. We're not going to live forever. Life is short. Make a list to help you decide, because once you see those two columns of items that you've added, because you'll go through your day and you'll come up with things. I'm not happy with this. The gas prices are just way too high, higher than the rest of the country. That goes on the reason to leave column. And so once you actually have a list you can look at, it's much easier to make the decision, because it is a hassle to pull up stakes and move. But if you do make the move and you go through your own due diligence to choose which state, you're probably going to end up being pretty happy with the move if you've got a long list of reasons to leave your current state. So give that some thought. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.